They just felt the wind of our entrance and exit. Like, ooh, what was that? There was a breeze.
Just like the soft part that you lay where it's like, was that a chair creak? That's all it was. You don't even know.
I would wonder, is it like that for the Flash? Like,
It has to be, right? It
is it
has to
even
be.
quicker? Like,
Oh my God,
It's a
man. Like
ghost of a moment.
so much that
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, like I can never even count it. So technically, he'd still be like a virgin, I guess, right? Because I mean, there's got to be like some kind of like threshold to that. But on that note, welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a podcast by filmmakers who talk movies, television, and debate flashes, experiences. I'm your host, Gary Coleman.
I am not your host, just a quickie.
And I'm your other guy, in and out.
Yeah. So in case you haven't caught the theme of this episode, this is going to be 2.0 of our short films debate. Not debate, but conversation, let's say. So we saw a series of short films that Jose is going to break it down to us and let us know what they are. We're going to give our thoughts and we're going to do our ranking about them and see if they should be expanded into bigger features. But first, we're going to hit you with a current event.
So this isn't really so much like a current event, but just more like a current trend that we're noticing out there. So it seems like the new thing that we're falling into is turning horror properties into TV series instead of movies. So we got that with Chucky, who's had a series now for a few years. Now we know it was announced that Halloween is going to be getting a series, and as part of the Jason verse that's being planned for Friday the 13th, we're also going to be getting the Crystal Lake series for Jason. So this seems to be a new direction that we're heading in. It's probably not going to be the last ones that we will be going into getting series of them instead of getting the anticipated movies. What are your guys' thoughts on this direction? Do you think it can work? You think it could be successful? Should they stick more with the movies, or would a blend of both probably be the best alternative depending on the property? We'll start with you, George. What are your thoughts?
It's proven that it can be successful. I think of shows like The Bates Hotel, which is the prequel to Psycho, or even the Exorcist TV show, which honestly wasn't too bad for something that was on Fox. Like it's proven it can be done. It can expand on this universe and add more brevity to it. It's all going to come down to obviously production and how much they actually care about the lore that we've already dived into. Some of these things, like I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how much hope I have for a Crystal Lake show or a Halloween show, because the character you're going after also has to bring something to it too. Let's be honest, the Jason films, they're fun, but they're kind of kooky, after like the umpteenth one. That's why there's always a joke about them in Jaws where it's like 37 Halloween, 37 Jason. It's like, okay, the guy doesn't die. What are you gonna do? Like, I just don't know how a show is gonna really add on to that kind of thing, especially if you don't have Jason as a killer. If you're going to Crystal Lake and maybe the myth of the area, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that may change now. Originally, they weren't going with Jason. They were supposedly going to follow Mrs. Voorhees, but that got scrapped, and it looks like they're restarting again. So we're probably going to get Jason this time. Thankfully, because the TV, pretty much all the rights except the movie rights work a little different, so they have access to everything for the TV show. What about you, Dan? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of like a mixed bag with this one. So at first, it's like feels like it's way oversaturated, like how they're gonna be able to carry this out. But at the same time, if they keep dishing out these sequel movies and they just keep rushing them, then that's when we see that the movie feels rushed. It feels bad. You start having multiple different creative people behind them, so they don't feel like the same type of franchise, I guess. You know what I mean? Like it feels like there's too many voices and things involved. If you do a TV show, at least we're going to get a consistent project out of this, kind of spread out for a little bit. So maybe they're going to do sort of like a Godzilla -1 on us, where they're going to really make the characters pop. I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm crossing my fingers on this. Because if we start to care about the characters, then we care if the characters are being killed. And in some weird way, it could be sort of like a reality show with Survivor. Who's going to be voted out? Like which one's going to die on this episode? So you there's an avenue to explore. Now, is that the way they're going to take it? Most likely not. That'd be nicer if they did that, because in my opinion, what makes a really good horror movie, especially ones that, especially lately, is when we care about the characters. So when you care about the characters, they're not just like one-offs where they're just getting killed immediately and we just continue moving on. Unless it's supposed to be that type of horror movie where we just want to, you know, like a gore fest where you just want to see a bunch of blood being spilled, that's fine. But if you're going to have a TV show, we have to care about the characters. So it's sort of forcing the showrunners and the writers to give more attention to the characters that we probably wouldn't have gotten had they just done 3 more movies, let's say.
Yeah, I think you both bring up good points, and I'm kind of in line with a lot of the things that you both said. When it comes to creating a series and expanding it over, even if you do, let's say, a mini series of, 3 to 6 episodes, and you go a little bit shorter, you're still more than doubling the time frame of one of those horror movies once you get into that space. So you need to have enough that's gonna grab and keep the audience attention throughout that entire series. You know, certain villains can attract more than others when it comes to that. Like George said, silent killers such as Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, they're not gonna keep the attention. You can only go so much on cool death scenes before like you need something from that killer. So those type of movies are gonna have to rely on the protagonist, on the victims to get it, like Dan was saying, where you have to care about them, in order to carry them through. The TV show does kind of give you the ability to do that a little bit better. Unlike the movies where you might care about one, maybe two characters by like the end. It was like, okay, they won me over. If even. Sometimes you don't care about any of them, you just like wipe them all out and all that. So the TV show gives you a little bit of that character development time. But then we have so Chucky, I've actually seen a good portion of the series. I'm not caught up or anything, but it's not a great series, but Chucky carries it. Like the personality you get with Chucky is very much like those original like Child's Play movies, and that's entertaining enough to carry it. So I can see maybe like a Nightmare on Elm Street because of the personality of Freddy being able to hold up a little bit more, but it's gonna be very tough. What Crystal Lake has going for it, I think, is A24. I don't think they're gonna cheat us in when they bring it through, and they're gonna work on the character development. So I'll wait until it comes out, but I'm with you, Dan. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I need to see it put to work. And then from there I can better judge.
I will say I think if A24 was doing, like you mentioned, like a Freddy kind of movie, I'd be more excited for something like that as opposed to this though. Because like the shows that we've mentioned, I think the ones that have been more successful are the ones that are more like psychological thrillers, where like there's things you really want to expand on the writing side of things, as opposed to like I said, the kills. The kills are fun. We're in it for the kills.
Mm.
But for a TV show, what depth does that really have over 6 to 12 episodes over time? While a Freddy thing, A24, how cool would it be? Like almost like a Dexter style kind of show. I'd be down for that. You
Yeah.
got me hooked if you're doing something like that.
That is true. What's funny thing is because Halloween has so many timelines, so many different
Yeah.
versions amongst it. At least Jason stayed pretty consistent. It's that one like timeline, but Michael Myers hasn't. I think one of the ones that is the most polarizing, it will probably work best in a TV show version, and that's Rob Zombie's Halloween because there was more depth to the character. It's very psychological. So there's things that you can target if you're going off of that Michael Myers and that world. Which is funny because out of the movies is one of the most polarizing ones that
Yeah.
people either love or they hate. But I think in TV show format, that timeline, that Michael Myers would be the best way to go.
I agree. I mean, realistically, they probably try to create their own, I'm assuming, right? Because if you start from scratch, it gives you more material to work off of a couple seasons. Unless if they make it a complete sequel sort of after the first one. Like I think that'd be more cool to like don't show us the origin and redo the first one. I don't know, man. It with what you were saying, George, if you go psychological horror with Freddy, there's so much material you can work with that they never really quite explored in the movies because being sleep deprived causes so much psychological trauma and that we could see with the characters, and there's so much stuff you can explore. And it felt like because of the era that it came out in, they always went straight to just slasher comedy, and you guys like this, right? You guys like this gore. And me and Jose are like, yeah, we do, as we're kids, because we did. I did love that. But there's still an avenue you can explore with Freddy that just really hasn't been touched yet. And I know with that remake, even though it was bad, it felt like they were trying to kind of tackle that a little bit more, right? It felt like they were trying to kind of nudge themselves in that direction, but then they didn't fully go, and then they kind of went back to what we knew because they thought they
try to
tried straddling the
recycle too
fence.
much.
Yeah, exactly. They tried straddling the fence too much with it, trying to give us what we wanted because as diehard fans, they were trying to give us what we wanted, but trying to give us a psychological edge to it. And it didn't work at all. You know, so I think going with the television series of this one, you can really, really tackle the protagonists and the characters, and it's an option, man. Having said that, let's get into our next segment, our main segment. We're going to talk about some of these short films. So you want to gear us up, Jose?
All right, so we have 4 short films to discuss today. They're all a little bit different from each other, much like as we did last time. We'll put the link down below to our last episode with the first batch of short films if you guys want to check that out. So here, let's start with a psychological sci-fi horror. It's kind of like a blend genre short film in Osiris. This is written and directed by Elliot Reeves. It stars Meg Clark, Dee Smith, Will Usick, and Ryan Hudson. So, Dan, let's start with you. What were your thoughts on this short film?
This one was interesting, and I like the approach that the director did because I felt, first of all, you can kind of tell it was British made. Like you can tell with some of the production and the camera, the quality of camera work and stuff, you could just tell. I don't really know how to describe it exactly.
There's a certain filter and angles that they
Yes,
use that are typical. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can tell right away, ignoring that the actors are obviously talking with a British accent, but that's fine, you know. But I really love those one scene in particular where you see her and it looked like where she was involved with a car accident and you're intercutting the image of her sitting in the kitchen. I thought that was so clever and something really good that the director did. I thought that was like by far his best thing. His best signature move in this movie, I thought, was that. Now, to kind of describe a little bit about the movie, right? We have this character that it looks like she went through this car accident, and we kind of see post-traumatic stress, this trauma that's kind of intermingling between herself and then her reality. So we kind of see it going back and forth with it. What's interesting about this is the ending. So like the ending is trying to really identify, because there was moments where I was wondering if she was like a ghost and they couldn't see her, right? And then when you first see her open up, it's like, is she paralyzed? And you see her kind of filling her legs, right? And like, is she gonna walk or is she like stuck to like a wheelchair? So there was a lot of things that was that you kind of had to figure out, which I really loved because I thought, what was the runtime? Like 8 minutes, right? 9 minutes, something like that. I want to
That was
say.
real short. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was longer than 11. Yes, it was. No,
11
11
and a
minutes.
half minutes.
11 and a half minutes. So I thought it was good. I liked the idea of what the characters, of what the director was going for with this one. I thought the acting was really good. It's that ending that I kind of had to sit back and chew on because I'm still trying to exactly decipher what happened.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll let you guys talk about it, and maybe we could talk more about the ending because I would like to kind of get closure on this, and I want to really hear what your guys' thoughts were.
It seems like it's one of those movies that's purposely left heavily to interpretation, which I think it's very hard to do. It's harder for the viewer when it comes to short films because there's less context and less information being provided to you for you to theorize what can happen. So you have to like really like try to fill in some blanks with information that isn't there for you. My theory is that we're kind of getting like a jumping through different realities is what I got from this. It seems like there's like one reality where, she died due to her brother. Her brother causing the car accident and her getting like pinned and like guys. So there was that. Then it seems that there might have been another reality where her brother doesn't exist, and another reality where it's the dad in the picture, then another one where it's the mom in the picture. There was like all these differences where it seemed like she was kind of like jumping through all these different possible realities. It's definitely one of those short films you have to watch multiple times to kind of like catch certain things with it. So like I noticed little things like the time never changed. It was like 9:35 every time like a phone was shown, but the dates changed. It was like I don't know, like January 20th, then the 17th, then the 18th. So those like little things like that, that where there was a difference, but that time was the same. And then I think even just like the title itself made me think, and George, you would know more about this. I was thinking of like Destiny, the video game.
Oh.
We had a character Osiris
Yeah.
in there, and you know, part of his character's story is where he's going to a realm that can create all these different realities, all these different like versions of things. And I know there's, you know, historical information like Egyptian gods,
Yeah.
Osiris, and you have that aspect too. So I think that had a piece of it, but it made me think of the game. But at least that's the way I saw it. I feel like I need to see it a couple like more times to kind of get a better picture. What about you, George? Well, what did you see?
There's lots of questions that you're left with when you watch this. And so I was writing this stuff down. So it's like, obviously we've tried to dive into this. Is she dead? We're not really sure if she's dead or not. Is her brother dead, Seth? We don't really know. Does he exist? Is she in purgatory possibly? If like let's say she died, she's just experiencing different parts of her life over and over again. The asteroid that the mother's talking about on the TV, that has a huge thing. And I agree, Jose. One of my questions was, is she jumping through parallel worlds? So my theory is that there's different versions of her life in different worlds, right? And at a certain point in time, each of them had a tragic situation of death where it was her brother, parent, or whatever. And when that asteroid passed over, something crossed over and everything just started like connecting with each other. And that's why I think that time is important, and the jumping back and forth of all that just connects together. That's my speculation. I think that's what it is. And yeah, the Osiris thing, yeah, it's definitely like Egyptian god. I think of like death. Well, yeah, Anubis brings them to death. I think Osiris rules over the death or whatever.
Resurrection,
Yeah, something like
death, things
that.
like
Yeah,
Yeah,
that.
brings
yeah,
to light or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me yeah, so that would make sense if it's sort of like crossing between different parallels and different versions of herself. It would go with the theory of, you know, reality being shifted. But then that would go more into like I guess sci-fi kind of, right? And
Yeah.
in watching this movie, I never really got any sci-fi feels like necessarily to kind of help say, okay, here's the proof how that could have happened outside of the mom watching the asteroid.
yeah.
Although it would answer every question. The
Well,
other,
well,
the
I'll point out she asks
okay,
her mom when the
yeah,
asteroid thing's happening. She asks her mom, "Would the asteroid have any kind of effect on
on,
us?"
yeah,
Like that's like, she makes sure to
yeah,
ask that specific question. So
yeah,
when that if that wasn't asked, I don't think I would have thought of it as much.
yeah,
But because she referenced it, I was like, okay,
that's
that
true.
has to mean something, right?
And
Yeah,
you see the feed kind of interrupted by,
Yeah,
you know, you get
yeah,
static on the TV, so there is some kind of
something.
interference happening.
That's true. So another option you can look at too, if you don't want to go the sci-fi approach on it, is that she could have had such a bad car accident that it caused neurological damage to her brain, where her reality is being shifted almost like either schizophrenia, sort of, or somewhat what dementia has, you know, where you kind of like
mm,
blank out and then things happen. Cause like you saw her pouring the tea and then all of a sudden one cup was empty and then she kind of had to re-pour it. And then
yeah,
when you see her interacting with the dad, he knew, and then she's like, the fact that we're in her point of view means we're experiencing and saying the same thing that she does. So on the outside, if somebody sees it where she's dealing with, you know, again, neurological brain damage, which looks very like that easily happened in at least one of the realities where she got in that car accident, you see her coughing up blood. It seemed like almost like she died. She would have had brain damage caused from that. And we could be from the point of view of somebody that's suffering from this. And you see a lot of moments of memory lapse and, you know, even your own brain wiring and, you know, going on, and that the neural links are just not fully connected anymore. There's like a lot of fractured or frayed memories, I guess.
Yeah, there
yeah,
was a bit that I was thinking something similar, but there was like the mom's reaction towards her at the end, where it's like she saw a ghost
yeah,
type stuff, like she wasn't supposed to be there. And then the difference is like we never saw the mom and dad in the same scene.
Mm-hmm.
It was always
yeah,
so it was like the dad existed, and then separately the mom existed. So those things that was like, okay, there's something beyond like in her head that was going on. At least that's the way that's what was triggering my
Yeah.
shift into again more of that like sci-fi which I guess it could be sci-fi horror in that
yeah.
aspect.
Yeah, it could be. I just looked at the anytime you look at the description of it, usually they'll kind of give you a little bit of hints or something, and it just said psychological horror. I didn't see anything that said sci-fi or anything that referenced sci-fi at all in
Mm.
this. But again, of all the theories we're mentioning, the sci-fi version is the one that actually makes the most sense, in my opinion. But even if you think where there's something where her brain is sort of like think everything everywhere all at once, right? Where you
Yeah.
kind of like wake up and your brain's waking up in the other versions of yourself. How could she have done that to the version where she was dead and the mom's seeing her as a ghost? How does she physically appear and reappear in a different one? Like that
Well, that's why I think she's physically
Jumping.
physically
Yeah.
jumping.
Yeah.
between the realities
Got it. Okay.
in there. That's because when she appeared there, the mom looked at her like, "You're not
Yeah.
supposed to be here."
Yeah,
But
because
earlier she was wearing the same thing, and the mom was able to
yeah.
talk to her.
Yeah.
Yes. Now that's funny too, because even when she was watching the asteroid, I was wondering if she was really there, or the mom sort of talking out loud because she was never
Talking to
looking at it,
herself.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you saw some of that, and even in the flash of the driving, you see the brother driving sometimes, and then you saw her driving. So you
Yeah.
saw somebody else causing the accident, and even with the door open with the lake, something to do with the lake. I mean, I felt like we kept going back to that a couple times.
But
First,
like
it looked like
the
she drowned, and then he drowned, and then
yeah, I took
yeah,
that as maybe the brother out of guilt
Killed
committed
himself.
walked into
suicide.
the lake
Yeah.
because
That's
you
what I
see
saw.
him wet afterwards inside.
Yeah.
From what you got there, those 11 minutes, do you guys see this as something that can be expanded into more? How can it possibly be expanded into more? Or no, better to keep it how it is? George?
Oh, definitely. I think this definitely would serve itself better if it was a little bit longer. Like even if they wanted to keep it as a short still, and like 45 to 30 minutes could easily add a little bit extra just so we can have a little ounce of closure on what is actually going on. Like you can leave some questions just for us to still keep on picking at it, but it needs just a little bit extra just so that we can have something to grab onto, you know.
Yeah, I think it definitely could be expanded, like what George said. I think the 30 to 45 minutes, like that sweet window, because the way that they set it up, and I like what they did, it felt like it was a little too short. Like we needed a little more
Yeah.
information. And if we go with the sci-fi route, I wish they would have explored that a lot more in the 30 to 45 minutes. There's so much you could have done with it. And if you really want to lean into that and make that as like the main thing of the story, you can really expand it even beyond the 45 minutes. You could almost have it as like a mini series or something like that, 6 episodes only, and really tie it into how her life, affecting and her kind of reliving trauma and whatnot in these different realities that we see. You can really do a lot of character development with that. So it really just depends which one of these theories that we said was right. Because if it's not the sci-fi one, then it's like it's more limited.
Yeah, because
So
I felt this could have been like anything like on Twilight Zone or the
yeah,
Outer Limits,
exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
something like
Yep.
that.
Absolutely.
I can also see it expanded. I agree 100%. Probably not a full feature, but maybe like a 30 to 45 minute one where we can start it at the same point. I like the starting point and
Yeah.
stuff, but we just kind of expand from there. Maybe add a little bit more context while not providing all the answers, at least making it a little clearer of kind of like which direction, giving a little more context towards the whys of this. Why is this happening to her? Why her? Is anyone else? Touch a little bit more if it is the sci-fi element on the comments. Maybe have some other stuff pop up where there's other effects that are happening because of the comment. So just it's putting a little more filler in there while not straight hand holding. And I think you could do that if you kind of, double or triple the time a little bit on what you have here. Let's go on to the next one. And we have this one is no doubt sci-fi. And we have Roy. This is written and directed by Joseph Bifalski, and it stars Katerina Polvachuk and Jonathan Sperling. The premise of this is, you have this, I guess it's called cybernetic female come into a shop and she's dying, she needs help, and she's threatening the guy who works in the shop to help her. The general premise of it. So what were your thoughts on this one, George? We'll start with you.
I think I wanted to like it more than I did. I think that there's definitely there's a good premise here. It kind of gave me vibes of, I don't know if you guys remember the episode from Love Death Robots with like the engineer and the
Mhm.
Ninetales, you know,
Yeah.
Fox Demon, and like he ended up like creating her into like a cyborg of sorts. It gave me that kind of feel. While that was definitely fully fleshed out, this needed more of that for us to really feel like I didn't feel for anyone. So when he made like his sacrifice and gave his heart to her, I was just like, you guys just met each other. Would you have really done that? You know, like I get you find out he's a cyborg too, so that's why he did it. But even like the reveal of him being a cyborg, it didn't get to have enough build up for me to really appreciate any of the actions that happened. I also feel like, and granted, I guess it's a short, so you know, finances are very limited, but some of like the costuming of like the special effects of her cyborg, her cybernetics, kind of really bulky, and that kind of took me out of it. I was like, oh, she's wearing this like a suit, like under there's a real body. I don't feel like she's a robot, you know. But there is something here. I think there is something worthwhile. It just needed a lot more.
Well, what about you, Dan?
I think George was being so nice at the end. You're like, there's something there, you know, there's
There was
something
that
there. I'm like,
that pause
it
of like,
was a pause. I'm like,
hold it,
me and Jose know
hold it.
George way too long. We could read you.
There's effort. Like I don't want to crap on
Yeah,
the effort. You know what I mean?
I
Like
know,
it
I
because it
know.
wasn't shot poorly. You know,
No, they had nice
there's
shots.
yeah, like the
They
opening
had some
shot's
nice shots.
nice. You know, there's
Hmm.
potential.
Yeah, it did. I saw the guy. I wrote down Chris Evans with a beard. That's kind of what he looked like a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
Yeah.
right,
he did. He
Yes.
looked like
right.
Chris Evans. Yeah,
Yes.
he did.
Especially like from Snowpiercer. Like that's the
Yes.
look he
Yep.
gave me.
Exactly. He did. Now, I had the same stuff too. Now, the fact that it's short film, you always assume it's very low budget and whatnot. So I'll give a pass on the armor being over. I thought the same thing too. It looks kind of bulky. You can tell she's wearing it, but like whatever. It's a short film. I'll get past it. Not a big deal. Shout out anytime people do short films on sci-fi because sci-fi is so expensive. It's probably the most expensive genre ever to film. The fact that you're doing that, like I'm giving you props and whatnot, that just means you need to tell a compelling story. You need to get that going. Now, him sacrificing himself for her, the questions that I had was like, okay, they're robots, right? Essentially, cyborg robots. They don't really have emotions or human emotions. So why does he have human emotions like this? So for saying somehow he was programmed and he learns human emotions where he felt the need to sacrifice himself for her, why? It seemed like if he's like an engineer or a mechanic of some sort and has the ability to help androids or cyborgs or whatever, which they hint at, he's more valuable than she is because he can still help create and help fix a lot of robots, whereas I don't really know what she does. He doesn't even know what she does. So why would he sacrifice himself? Like it just didn't make any sense to me and it lacked the emotion, which you can then argue, well, they're robots, they're not supposed to have emotion, then why end it on the emotional ending when they're not robots and they're showing emotion? So the whole idea that I kept wrapping around with this one is the idea of emotions and being a humanoid or a human, but they're robots. But I couldn't get past the fact of him sacrificing himself to exhibit a human emotional element. Like we're supposed to feel bad that he sacrificed, or at least sad that he sacrificed himself for her. They just didn't give us anything to emotionally connect to these characters. So
I was pretty much on the same board. It didn't feel complete. There's just too much of the whys lingering in this. And why is a big proponent of any story. If you don't have the why and you don't understand the why, then everything else kind of falls apart. The why is what connects everything, the motivation. And I just wasn't seeing that there. There wasn't enough, as you guys mentioned, established, on the two characters for the emotional point at the end to hit as hard as they wanted it to hit. There's not a lot of time to know her to care about her depowering. So as she's there depowering and dying, I don't know enough about this character to like really feel like, oh damn, like I'm sorry. And then I don't know enough about him to make that sacrifice he made make sense at all. So it definitely felt very incomplete. I can see this be a small scene in a bigger sci-fi movie where we've already established him and we've established her and we followed them on their own like side story, and this is where they kind of meet together, and then all of that will hit. But standing alone, I don't know, didn't do it for me. I can see this being expanded because it doesn't work in its small frame for at least in the way that they wanted it to. In a way, I can see this maybe being like, "Hey, here's a little snippet of this movie that we want to do, and then here, look at the shots that we did, look at the this and all of that stuff." I can see it as that kind of like a teaser, like a sampler
Yeah.
for something bigger. What about you guys, Dan? What do you see this as something expanded or not?
I Okay, so do I want to see expanded? No.
No.
Should it be expanded? Yes, because I didn't get anything out of this. So, I mean, just I really didn't. I didn't get a ton out of this. It's like you said. It's sort of like as if you're trying to sell a studio on this movie that you want to do, and instead of just sending them like a treatment or a synopsis, you decide you're going to film like a quick little scene or a teaser trailer to get them excited. But instead, you pick the most emotional scene of your entire movie, but you're showing it to us without any context. So all I'm just seeing is a bunch of people just crying, and it's like I don't know why they're crying. So I'm just asking a bunch of questions, and I'm really focused on the acting because now I'm so focused on the acting to see if they're selling the crying that I'm not even paying attention to the story. It kind of felt like that with me. So should it be expanded? It should, but I'm not asking for it.
What about you, George?
Same with y'all. I will say, because like Dan, you had pointed out like not feeling that they should have shown emotion because they're robots and everything. I will say for me, I kind of got the sense that they were more like AI, closer to AI, cybernetic
Mhm.
kind of shit. You ever seen the movie Bicentennial Man with Robin
Yeah.
Williams?
Mm-hmm.
In that movie, he starts off as just like a regular robot per se, without emotions, without feelings. But over time, actually evolved. Something happened in his circuitry where he learned emotions, he developed emotions, and he became human by the end of the movie. Granted, it took 200 years, but over time, that's what he became. So take that movie, and then he is Roy. He's lived a lifetime and all this stuff. So getting to go through that journey and now seeing another one that's like him, and then he gives up his heart. He's like, I know the journey that you're going to go through. I want someone else to experience what I've got the pleasure of experiencing.
See, that's
Now you
would
got
have
a
caught
complete
my
movie.
interest. That
Yeah.
would have caught my interest, and I would sign me up all day. I would have been into that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Bicentennial 2.
Exactly. But I will say this. So as we were looking and trying to watch Roy, I did see the little 40-second scene with Roy with the David Bradley, that one, and I like that one more, even in the little 40-second teaser that I saw. I got so much. If you guys just watch that little 40-second teaser that I saw, there was so much in that little tiny 40-second scene that had so much more emotion. I was like, in 40 seconds, it got me in those 40 seconds.
If we're gonna be real, even the thumbnail for it, the thumbnail alone is just
watch
like,
it, George.
that
Watch
dude,
it, George.
something's going on.
It's gonna get in your hearts in those 40 seconds. You're gonna feel it
Yeah.
immediately. It felt like Up. You know when you see the very beginning of Up, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
man,
yeah. I get
it was
that.
like that. That little 40 seconds got me. I'm like, damn.
Well, let's go on to the next one. This is the comedy.
Real quick, Jose. We have our own little short right here.
Hey everyone, let's take a moment to talk about where I've been getting these new Not a Strong Start t-shirts from. Head on over to itsnas.threadless.com, the only place where you can get Not a Strong Start merch, whether it's our newly designed mascot or just your favorite movie logo now with some NASS flair. You can rep your NASS love on tee, hoodie, mug, rug, and so much more. So get yours today. Just click on that link below and have yourself a strong start. Have a not a strong start, have a start that's strong, but not so strong. You know what to do.
Now that
Well
one,
done, George.
That one should be expanded into its own feature film.
A full infomercial.
It's full infomercial. There you go.
But for this next one, we have our comedy of the group. This is called Crooks. It has a runtime of about 8 minutes, a little bit over than that. It's written and directed by Andy Chen. It stars Soph Huckley, Sid Noel, which, funny enough, their characters share the same first names for both of them, Danilo Lazo and Emma Matter. Simple premise, you've got these two women who need money, and they decide they're going to rob a convenience store. And that's the premise. Well, I'll add this. One of them, their motivation to rob this is they need money to pay for their dog's vet bill. So just to throw that in there. For this one, it is a dumb concept, but in a good way. I like that dumb premise of like, hey, we're gonna go as far as trying to rob a convenience store for my dog type aspect of it. Like, I feel there's room there for some silliness. This type of movie, it relies heavily on chemistry between the two leads and the banter between the two leads because again, it's a very simplistic premise to it. It's small scale, so you need those things to work. You need both characters to have chemistry, and you need that banter to really hit. And there were moments where I generally laughed at some of their banter and their reactions. But there was also moments where the dialogue just didn't hit, where it was like, okay, you could have pulled away from that, or you could have already moved on from that little segment and moved on to the next one. So in that part, it was kind of very hit or miss, but there were some moments where I genuinely did laugh from it. I wasn't a fan on how the ending played out in this. Like I feel it just kind of it went way too silly, like very at the end, and that kind of brought it down. What about you, George? What were your thoughts on Crooks?
Same thing. I thought the girls had great chemistry with each other. You know, I felt like they were friends. The main girl gave me a lot of Alison Brie vibes at
Mm-hmm.
times with like
Mm-hmm.
her face and delivery. The whole thing, like just so people can understand what we're describing here. These girls go in to rob the store, only to find out that it's already being robbed by someone else, and the person they're trying to rob is the robber. And I thought that was actually kind of funny and cool. Nice little
Yeah,
flip, you know, seeing the clerk on the floor all tied up and everything. Something I wish they had done, because they go back and they try to save the clerk and they confront the guy, and there's this whole battle that happens that we never get to see. We just see a beat up freaking store at this point, and now they're throwing some beers back and everything. I kind of would have wanted to see that battle, especially with the comedic timing they had. I feel like there could have been some good gems in there, you know, but I don't know, maybe they didn't have the time or budget to want to do a fight scene or whatever, or whatever. But
that's what I was thinking. Is maybe it was filming restrictions where they're like, you
yeah,
can use our store, but don't destroy our store.
exactly.
Or sometimes when you're dealing with, independent or short films like this, they might not have liked what they shot. And
That's true
they
too.
might have looked at it too and be like, this looks like trash. We can't show this.
True.
Yeah.
So
At the same time, though, with what Jose said about pulling back on some of that dialogue, I think editing was probably an issue there too. So I don't know if they would have had the wherewithal to pull back on a bad fight scene. But
yeah.
but in any case, like I did think it was funny with them just like chilling there with the original robber, just like throwing back some beers, and it's like, "Ha, ha, you were robbing it and we were robbing it, ah, ha, ha." And the clerk's just there, all tied up, stabbed, bleeding to death. I thought that was great. That was honestly awesome. But Jose, you're right. That ending, I was like, okay, why are we having a party now all of a sudden? Like you got the money. Like what are we
Yeah.
doing here? You know? And like you're gonna have to like the clerk. What about the clerk? Like she saw your faces. Remember when you came in with masks? Now you don't have masks. What are you doing? Like you forgot. Granted, they're drunk too, so they're not
And
making
the
the best
guy's gonna wake
decisions.
up.
Yeah.
What
And
about
I,
you,
I
Dan?
want a bigger
Oh,
payoff, I think.
Yeah. What I wrote down was this very much feels like a guy wrote the script and the females are delivering it because their dialogue lines, I had a lot of issue with the dialogue lines because they didn't feel like a girl wrote this. If you would have had like a Greta Gerwig that would have done something like this, I think it would have felt more like females actually in the situation and not just that you casted females saying guy lines. I thought it could have been a lot more funnier. I really liked the knock him out on the beer bottle. I thought that was pretty
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
I thought that was really cool. That was probably my favorite thing of the whole short. I like the premise behind it. Like even, dogs are expensive. And the other one, I like money. Like that's funny. That's true. It's such an honest answer. Like I just want money. Like that's great. I would not repeating what you guys already said already. They kind of jumped that, so it kind of made me say like, well, why are they all of a sudden just sitting down having beers with them? Like him punching them, like it seemed kind of gruesome. When the clerk was on the ground, I thought the blood came from the back of her head or it looked like her head, but then it wasn't. So then you see it bleeding from her chest. So maybe I misinterpreted where she was lying on the ground, I guess, because I thought it was head trauma. If it was head trauma, she wouldn't just be sitting up like that. So I'm assuming it wasn't head trauma. They went back to save her, but then they didn't save
wait,
her and they just
didn't
took
she
the
have like
money.
a pencil
Yeah.
stabbed into
Yeah,
her?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's why I'm chalking up as okay, it wasn't head trauma. I misinterpreted when I first looked at it.
Right. It's just a
But
lot
just
of blood from a pencil
it was
wound,
just a
though. It's a
lot of
lot of
blood,
blood.
especially if you stab from the front, you're gonna be bleeding from the front. That thing came from the back.
Yeah.
But
It could
whatever.
maybe
Again,
her head fell. Maybe she fell backwards, head hit the ground.
yeah.
It's possible,
But then her
you
hair
know.
would have had blood and stuff in it. Like her hair would have looked different. But again,
That
we're nitpicking.
yeah, they're not
It's
gonna go that
It's
far for this.
yeah, exactly. They're not going that far for this. That's
Yeah.
fine. So I'll look past it. Them drinking with the guy though, it's funny, but it doesn't make sense because we missed that whole chunk of stuff. and then them just taking it and not even helping rescue the girl. And then when they took the time to wear the mask, and then when they run back in, they're running in without the mask. Just certain stuff wasn't quite adding up to me. So, do I want to see it expanded? It could be. I would just want to see a female creator behind it. I think a female director would have been good. Again, Greta Gerwig. I've never seen her do this type of kind of dark humor like this, but I think she would crush it, and I think it'd be pretty funny. You kind of sort of go like one bad night. So these girls have these, reason why, and then things just keep going wrong and keep escalating as the whole thing just keeps like unraveling. That would be interesting if we saw it all take place in one day. So I could see it expanded. Yeah.
I could definitely see it expanded where, they're trying different ways to get the money,
Mm-hmm.
while then you also have the cops kind of following their
Mm-hmm.
trail of chaos, and it just keeps escalating and escalating from a little convenience store where all of a sudden maybe you have like a local gang or like a mafia, something where it just ridiculously escalates from the point where we started, and then the cops are following him the whole time. Maybe something with like a 90-minute runtime. You don't want to push it too far, but I could see it where you have a lot of laughs and a lot of that back and forth banter that we got with a lot of those comedies in the early 2000s and things like that, where it was all about the chemistry and the back and forth and the dialogue between the characters in this huge, chaotic, exaggerated, silly scenario.
You know what it harkened back to me was like the movie, was it 30 Minutes or Less?
Mm-hmm. I was literally
Like
thinking that when Jose
Yeah.
was
that's
talking.
what I thought of, that, or even Harold and Kumar kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two movies I thought of.
Mm-hmm.
I think on a grander scale, so maybe instead of robbing the convenience store, they're robbing a bank. Because let's be honest,
Mm-hmm.
these bills you got to pay, a convenience store is not going to cover it. you know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like you got to go a little bit bigger. And banks get robbed, so maybe something like they're already getting robbed, and you happen to walk into that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good premise there. Maybe they become heroes at the end because
Sure.
it's a movie and they're the good guys. They're not.
Yeah.
There are protagonists. We want to root for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 And now, going on to our last project, we have Lost and Found, that was written and directed by Bradley Slab or Slabe. This is about, 7.5 minutes in completion. So this is an animated movie, unlike the other ones that we had in there. And the premise of this is you have these two like crochet toys, a fox and a dinosaur. Fox is in danger. The dinosaur is doing everything it can to try to save the fox before the fox is a downer. I'll start this one. Like this one to me did what Roy was trying to do, but successfully. And this one was able to establish so much more emotionally that I was fully invested in the plight of the two characters. Unlike Roy, where I was not invested in anything that I saw on the screen, especially the two characters. The little things that they included in there, like the image in the phone, panic when the dinosaur wakes up and notices the fox isn't next to him, the few seconds of interaction like before the danger, that all that was enough to see like a legit connection and like love between these two characters. So that first minute, you're in there with them, like, oh, this is ride or die between these two characters. And you're fully in. And I felt this movie was just like a journey of emotions. You had that adrenaline rush, you had that a little bit of happiness when you think things will turn out well. You had some sadness and you had some hope, and they fit all this nice 7.5 minute package. Where out of all of them, this one I think had the most impact like on me as a viewer. So, George, we'll start with you on this one. What were your thoughts on this one?
I agree with that. This was like Pixar level kind of storytelling, honestly. And it's the fact that stop motion. I love stop motion. It's such a dying breed of storytelling. It takes so much time and attention to detail. And I freaking loved every second of this. Just like you talk about their connection with each other and that little moment where they're blowing kisses to another, and like the kiss like hits them, and so you feel it, and they blow it back. It's like, oh yeah. It's like I'm pretty sure all of us have done that with our loved one. You know, that imaginary kiss. You know, we're going, oh damn, you got me too hard with that
We
one.
do that to each other all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes to a random stranger, but it doesn't always
yeah.
hit them as hard.
Doesn't sometimes it misses, yeah.
Yeah.
But I loved all of
It
that.
gets the one behind them. It's like, no, not you, the
Yes.
other one. Hand it off. Hand it off.
Move it back. That's not yours.
It's too strong. It's too strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I loved the connection with them, and there's no talking. This is the one film out of everything that there's no speaking whatsoever. It's just the tension of the music and how every scene is put together, you know, and like just seeing that piece of yarn being pulled on you, like you know what's gonna happen. You know that one's gonna sacrifice themselves for the other one. It's just going back and forth tit for tat, and that the ending just freaking it pulled right on my heartstrings. You know, especially like here's the thing. I want to note that there was 2 lost and founds that I found. There was this one and another one. And the other one that I saw after this had some like it was a horror film. All right. So there was like family and stuff that get killed and everything. And so it's just like this had hope while the other one didn't. But I was already feeling emotional from this. So I think that lingered on to when I watched the next one. I was like, I'm still here in my heart. I'm still but the ending I just loved. I love because you think like, all right, well now the dinosaur is gone, but then you see the fox just taking like that broken twig that was holding the door and using that to like crochet the dinosaur back together again. I was like, yes, he's gonna come back. But then it unravels. I was like, no, what are you doing to me? But they keep on going. It's like, all right, just keep on trying. Get your friend back.
Don't give up. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, so this is the second time I saw this one. I saw this one like a little while back ago. And so it's the second time I rewatched it. And I love animation stop motion. And I automatically give it a biasness just because I know how hard and difficult it is to do those.
Yeah.
So naturally, you're already going to rise to the top with doing that because it's a level of commitment and the time you take to do that, which always means it's very rare to ever see a stop motion where there's just like a bad storyline or something. It's usually a good production because it's so tedious. Every detail has to be right. So that's what tells you to take the time with the stories. This one was no different. I love the fact that they did the dramatic push-in. So like the what I call the Spielberg effect, like what we saw in the movie Jaws. So when you see the fox,
Was it the
there, and
Yeah.
and you see the dinosaur go back, and like you push in while doing the zoom at the same time, so it does that dramatic, when you go in. Awesome. So I thought it was great. And then I love this one. I want to talk about the ending. So with what George said, you can look at this optimistically, right? Because it's like the fox is going to keep trying, but you can also see this from a negative standpoint, or at least a more sad standpoint of the fox is going to keep trying, but to no success, because it also helps heighten up the dinosaur's sacrifice because it was a true sacrifice, knowing that it killed itself and the fox just can't bring it back. So it's going to continue to try for the rest of its life, trying to resurrect this dinosaur that's just a fail that's never going to happen.
I think one of the parts that also hit about it is just, you have this dinosaur it's a clumsy dinosaur. It's not, but he's gonna try with all its heart to go there, and you're seeing this going through. And what makes the connection between them more powerful and more reciprocal is that you could tell the fox knows how far this dinosaur is gonna go to save him. And what does he do? He tries to sacrifice itself by closing the door, even though it means the end of itself. Close the door to stop it because it knows the dinosaur is not going to stop at nothing, even to its own detriment, to save it. And it was true because even the door couldn't stop the dinosaur. So it was that reciprocal sacrifice attempt. So it wasn't just like the fox is in danger the whole time and like, help me, help me, help me. It's like, no, I don't want you to kill yourself to help me, and trying to stop him while he's trying to save him. The whole dynamic, it was just so good.
So what do you guys think the ending then? So tell me that. What's your guys' prediction? Do you think the fox gets and resurrects the dino successfully?
Honestly, my true thought is that it would put it back together, but I don't think that it would come back. I think it would just be a husk of a dinosaur.
If it ever succeeded, huh?
Yeah.
And
Like I
actually
think it would sew it back together, but I don't think it would bring life back to it.
How about you?
I wouldn't say that it will. It'll bring it back together, and maybe at first it wouldn't be alive. Then it'll take like a strong embrace to bring it back to life. That
Give it the
love
juice.
connection
Yeah.
will kind of juice it up. Yeah, give it a clear, give it a hug, and then like wake it up type stuff. I need hope at the end of that one. Like I need to maintain my hope.
I want to be positive and optimistic about this, and I think it's so sweet. But I think of viewing it the same way that George does, it adds more plight, like it adds more weight to the sacrifice of
Yeah.
this, and it makes it a much more heavier movie, right? Like it feels more of a heavier short film. Where it's like, man, like don't lose sight of the fact that it was animation and that they're just crochet like dolls. Like that true sacrifice was real, and you
Yeah.
really sacrificed yourself for
Like
this.
it was a life.
It was a life, and that life is now
What
ceased.
if it rebuilds it, not fully the same, but rebuilds it as best as it can. And it does come to life, but it's not the original dinosaur. So it's like a new
Oh,
life
like a baby
being.
Groot situation.
Yeah, kind of like that, where it brings it off, and now the fox,
Good.
can teach it about who the original dinosaur was and kind of build a new connection.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
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 Well, we'll
Or
see
it
with
just comes
that.
back
Then
completely
I'd want.
feral. It's like a dinosaur, like T-Rex from Jurassic Park, and it's just immediately starts biting the fox.
I was like, what would be actually then really cool? Let's say like the
Sometimes dead is better.
Yeah, exactly. Learn that from Pet Cemetery. I
Right.
learned my lessons, good sir.
So soft sequel then, or a soft ending.
Yeah.
The fox takes some of its tail stuffing because some of the stuffing was lost.
Mhm.
It uses its tail stuffing to help create the new one, and that new one has a new personality and everything because it's part fox and part dinosaur.
Mm, there we go.
I
I like it.
Uh, as much as internally, I want to see more of this world, and I want to see like what happens. That internal curiosity and just like care for these two like crochet characters. I feel it's perfect where it's at as it is. Don't don't touch it. Don't expand on it. Leave it as it is and let the people choose if they want to choose hope, if they want to choose negativity, whatever they want to feel is that next step. But this story is complete just as it is, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you expand, it's gonna just feel like Toy Story, and then the characters are mute. It's really hard to do like a mute, feature. You can't really do that. Even Mr. Bean still made sounds and like random words here and there. Like you gotta have something, you know what I mean? So like you would need some kind of dialogue and stuff to expand it, but like just leave it. Just leave it perfect. It's a perfect little morsel.
Yeah.
Those were our 4 films. We don't need to do a queue on this because the 4 films are a queue, and we're gonna include, besides a link to our last short film episodes where you got 4 other short films, we're also going to include the links to these short films that are all on YouTube, so you yourselves can watch it, give your own judgments, see what you think. Do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? And do you have any? We're going to be doing more of these. Do you have any suggestions of some short films that we should include in future episodes?
Yep. So let's do a final ranking. How would you guys rank it from 1 to 4? What order would you guys put the short films? So Jose, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So for me, and number 4, I'm gonna have to put Roy. There's just I could not connect with that one. Even if, the way it was filmed was good, there's just the story and the emotion just wasn't there. So I'm gonna go Roy at 3, then I'm about to go at 4, then I'll go Crooks at 3. Has some funny moments and all that, but the story, there's some incoherency like to it, which kind of dropped it. Then I had to go with Osiris at 2. I definitely want to give it a couple more rewatches, see if I pick up any more from that. And then clear, far number 1 is Lost and Found. That was just chef's kiss on that one. Just nailed everything.
I think, is it safe to say that me and Dan had the exact same order?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact same
It's the
order.
exact
And
same.
I think even watching this, it was kind of obvious too, when
Yeah.
you're watching them,
Yeah.
in my opinion. When I started watching Osiris, I was like, okay, will this one be, I was wondering where it was gonna fit in the
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
But then
Because
as
it
I
started
watched
strong.
Crook,
It was a start. It was
it
just
started
a strong
strong,
start.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you thought, okay, this one's okay, like it might be in the middle of the pack maybe, and then I started watching Crooks, I was like, nope, and then like it just started shifting up, and then when I saw Roy, I was like, okay, I know which ones
Yeah.
at the end. But then Lost and Found, man, stop motion, like
Yeah.
it's already a huge advantage, like it is what it is.
Big difference from our last four, where there was some differences in how we ranked them
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you made it
Like,
easy on this one.
yeah, exactly. This one was clear cut. But on that note, thank you for watching another episode of Not a Strong Start. Please like, subscribe, comment, share on YouTube channel Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, at Twitter, at Not a Strong Start. I am your host, Gary Coleman. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
I'm not your host, just a quickie, and you can find me at This Is Mi Nombre on Instagram.
And I am your other guy, In and Out, and you can follow me at Nicolopoulos.